afternoon, good evening to all our subscribers today. And today we are here for the Grandmaster Opening Preparation Programs classes. And today's topic is black line lines. Over to you, sir.
Hi. Well, good evening, everyone. Maybe we have some players with like, I know it's mostly from India, but maybe we have some like European players. So good morning. So today we have our fourth session, and we continue with Italian or gioco piano, as I already mentioned, it might be called. So today after fully covering knight f6, we are switching to probably the most, well, definitely the most popular move, bishop c5. But we will start and we will dedicate this fourth session to sidelines. So what do I mean by sidelines? Is the line where white is playing, let's say, not a slow Italian, which is probably the most popular opening. And I guess, like, if you watch high level, top level chess, mostly you can see something similar to c3, knight f6, d3. So this is what I call slow Italian. So when the d3 played, and now it starts a maneuver and play. So we'll get to this in our next sessions. But today we'll check so-called sidelines that still required a lot of theoretical knowledge and could be quite dangerous for black. So the first of all, I would like to start with the move b4, which is called Evans Gambit, considered to be very dangerous for black, unless you know the theory pretty well. So definitely for those players who is planning to play this position for black, it's definitely required some precise knowledge. So we'll focus on move bishop b4, which is like by far the main line. I would like to mention that most probably bishop b6 is not that bad. I mean, I have found a few games of Magnus Carlsen, which is a good sign for black, but I believe white should be better somehow, and my choice would be the move b5, which is played by a strong Indian grandmaster Ganguly, and I usually trust his opening directions, since he's known for working with the Vishy Anand for many years. And he had a game where he opted for b5, and after knight d4 went for knight d4, bishop d4, c3, bishop b6, and d4. I have the feeling that white really pretends for advantage. Black is a little bit undeveloped. There are many games, but let's put it this way: this is not the line that I would recommend for black. At the same time, it looks promising for white. So this is like the move to mention. Well, knight b4 obviously not a good move, since pawn on e5 is hanging. Also c3, d4 comes with tempo. So we have bishop b4 as a top choice. Well, that's like, I think, practically 99% played on the high level. After bishop b4, we have move c3, and now there are two main options for black. So bishop can retreat either to e7 or a5, and I think like both moves are quite reliable for black, again with some precise knowledge. So I guess we'll start with bishop a5. Usually what is white is trying to do here in this line, white is playing d4 with idea to play, like, to open up the bishop, and with the main point that if e4 played, white attacking f7 pawn with queen b3, and after queen e7 castle. And this position I have never checked, but I have the feeling that it might be very dangerous for white, since there are some problems with developments, and well, despite two extra pawns, it's not something that I would recommend well, you know, there is bishop a3 coming, also e5 can be played at some point. So not so easy position, pretty much pointless to play this for black side. So therefore, the main move in this position, which is considers, I think, like considers pretty reliable, is d6, just protecting pawn on a5. Now, white's main hopes for advantage connected with move queen b3, attacking pawn on f7, and at the same time it's kind of tricky move with some kind of like trap with the point that with the following point, so that if black chooses the most natural move, it would be a mistake due to idea d5, knight is moving somewhere, and queen a4 check, black is losing his bishop on a5. So therefore in this position, very important to play queen to d7. So this is the best move. This is the best move for black. Now we control, after d5, a knight moves to e7, and we control b5 a4. So here we have that's basically, in my opinion, the initial position of this theoretical line. I would say that d5 is the main move in this position. Definitely some other moves can be played, like castle or knight d2. I think, like, overall black's play is very simple. Let's say whether it's played castle or knight bd2, in both cases we have this very important move. That's a key move in this line. Black bishops cements the queen side, finds a safe spot on b6, and at the same time we create knight a5. So-called multi-purpose move. I think overall black is doing pretty good in this position. Now, surprisingly, the same move applies to knight d2. So we just play bishop b6. Now, but the most interesting fact that after d5 we play bishop b6 as well. I think it's quite dangerous. It's quite dangerous to recapture due to bishop a3. I'm sorry, due to bishop a3 move. So with some interesting initiative, I would say, for white, who wants to play castle followed by rook d1 and so on. So that's why black, in my opinion, should play bishop b6 in this line. I'm sorry, instead of d5, bishop b6 is the move, with very complex play, but at the same time, I believe white doesn't have advantage here. Black is doing pretty well, good results on practice. So white has tried mostly the moves like knight bd2, bishop b5, a4. Overall, I would say I like black chances in this position. So we have this is one idea. That like recently quite a popular choice on the high level, d6, queen d7. Now, started with bishop a5. Now another move is bishop e7. Bishop e7. This is where white goes for d4. Now, and the main move in this position, knight a5, is well known. It's well known main line, with the point obviously to chase off the bishop and take the bishop away from the diagonal and attack of f7 pawn. Now I would like to mention also, yeah, it's a very important point that, like, it seems at first glance that this can be nice idea, since black has only one move to protect the pawn, and then d4 is the follow-up, attacking the bishop. Looks very attractive, but I think black is just in time to stabilize with the position with the following idea: knight a5, queen b5, knight takes c4, and now black is fine in both directions. whether it's bishop h6, knight d6, queen a5. So f6 runs into queen h5, and maybe it's a good position for white. But there is a very nice tactical trick here that, of course, like you have to know, and like you can check the opening lines here, check with computer, but overall it's a great position. So queen g7, it's very important. Queen g7 now runs into very convenient bishop f6, followed by d5. And you know, the point is that despite that our king is kind of like vulnerable, actually it's very easy to find a safe spot on the queen side. So we'll slowly prepare queenside castle and we'll be in great shape. So after bishop g7, which is definitely the main move, rook g8 played, queen e4, that's the main line, and rook g7. And I checked this position, and there are a few games played. Overall, black king is would feel pretty safe on f8. It's not a problem, and eventually I think like bishop pair should give black better chances in this position. So I would rather prefer black in this position. So this is one line that I mentioned. Now another line, another line in this direction is queen c4, and then there is a classical reaction where black plays knight g4, very important move, and after d5 there is d6. Or there is another line where white chasing off the knight from g4, knight f6 comes, and d5 looks very nice for white at first glance, but unfortunately there is move d5, which for sure secures very comfortable position for black, because I mean white has to take in some way, or ed6 or ed5, and the position is stabilizes. And once again, bishop pair plus better pawn structure should be very important factors in long run. So we are coming back to the main line, which is d4. Now after d4, knight a5 is played, because I think, well, definitely the whole point is that after ed4 there is a move queen b3, and knight h6 is not available anymore. I think white's supposed to be better, and there are a lot of winnings game for white. However, I found it's like not absolutely clear. So I mean, black's still in the game, although it's probably many players are disappointed and missing queen b3. So this position is actually appears to be not that bad, not that bad according to, let's say, computer evaluation, but the results clearly favors white on practice. I think it's overall very difficult to play with the king being so exposed on f7. Maybe only a computer can defend. So now after knight a5, we have a few, like I think I would say 3 main moves, 2 bishop retreats, bishop d3, bishop e2, and knight a5. Well, it's kind of like easy to equalize for black. I would like to mention that so-called thematic sacrifice is not working here due to the this easy defense, knight a5, king e8. I think actually king f8 also possible, no problem with king f8, but I think this is considered to be a little bit more precise. After queen h5, we have g6, knight g6, and knight f6 important move. Knight f6 important move in this position. After queen a5, hg6, I think it's already 3 pawns. I think it's only 2 pawns, and it's basically not enough. It's not enough. What black should be able to convert advantage in a long run. So this bishop f7, after knight a5, an obvious idea to take the bishop, and very important move d5, the follow-up, and forcing ed5, queen d5. Now it's very logical to have move knight e3 here, because g2 pawn is hanging as well. So queen in my opinion should just go back. Well, actually not back. I think like that's the best square, because I found it's quite important to guard a3 square, because white at some point would like to play bishop a3, trading dark square bishops, and by doing this getting rid of bishop pair. So I find this square the most convenient for black. So approximate line here, castle, knight f6. So we just continue with normal development. c4. White has center. It looks kind of like nice, but I think black position is very reliable. And once again, I like overall black chances. It doesn't mean that black is better here, but I like black chances in long run due to bishop pair advantage. So I just want to mention one trick. So after bishop d2, it's very important not to go to h5, as happened in a few games, I think. Well, actually 2 games, but 1 game of Grandmasters, which ended basically in 1 move. After knight d5, black is losing piece tactically. So, and black just resigned. So here we need to know that this strange looking square is actually quite solid, and the following play would probably go knight c3, c6, and slowly but surely black will develop his pieces and have a nice game, I think, in long run, once again thanks to bishop pair. So that's another line with knight e5, and now we'll get to 2 probably most popular moves nowadays. It's bishop d3 and bishop e2. I think bishop e2 is a little bit more less popular nowadays, I would say. So here I like the idea to give up the pawn back, but stabilize the position and make sure to complete development. What is happening here, that after ed4, white plays queen d4. There is a very classical, and I guess the model game for Evans players, when Garry Kasparov beat Vishy Anand. So I guess this line was kind of like unexplored back then, and well, Kasparov was better prepared. So what happened in this game, after natural knight f6, e5, knight c6, queen h4, knight d5, queen g3, white got some initiative due to the fact that there is no convenient way to defend pawn on g7. Castle runs into bishop h6, winning exchange. Meanwhile, g6 weakening the position. So this is what Vishy played, but eventually it's ended up in a win for white after castle. So definitely here a lot of compensation. Already dark squares are pretty vulnerable, plus definitely space advantage in the center. So this is not the position to play. I would never go for this position with black. So here I actually analyzed once move d6, and it appears to be quite double-edged. After queen g7, there is move bishop f6, and after queen g3, knight e7. I found this position quite fascinating because it's kind of like unexplored because there are just so many ideas for both sides. But overall, the situation for black is not so bad. I know at first glance it looks like the king is very vulnerable and what to do with the king, but not to forget that there is always option of queenside castle. So this position, I would say, unclear. However, well, it's definitely a little bit risky. I think like d6 much more reliable in this position. So usually the main line here runs queen a4, c6, d5, d5, knight e5, knight f6. So white regained the pawn, but black at the same time secured full development and castle, which is sometimes not happening in this line. After castle, we have the position which occurred in 100 games, with a lot of games between grandmasters. There are different, there are different moves here for black. I mean, it's not only castle. There is queen c7 that I thought quite the most precise move in this position, as well as b5 is there also, but I like queen c7. And overall, so there is either knight f3 or f4. Overall, we have a very complicated game. The position is playable for both sides. Objectively speaking, I think white doesn't have advantage here, but still we have a nice game with a lot of pieces on the board. So both sides can enjoy this position. And now finally, finally we have bishop d3 move. The same strategy here, I would definitely recommend d6, giving up the pawn and making sure to complete development, and castle. d5, d5, so that's the line, knight e5, knight f6, castle, castle. So this is, I would say, the initial position and the theoretical tabia in this variation. Again, you can find a lot of interesting games, a lot of different options for white. There is knight d2, there is queen c2, there is f4. Now, queen c2 still remains by far the top choice. So the idea to have, after the knight will go back from e5, to have the threat e5 targeting h7. So now in this, and there is a crossroad where black can play either positional c5 with idea queen c7 or knight d7. I had a very nice game, very nice win here for black. Again, like, I believe the position is good. The position is good for black, but the play is very double-edged as usual. But the point is that white has to prove that there is some compensation for kind of like ruined pawn structure. So basically, so this is how I won the game. I basically won the game in the end game. So the critical line e5, but according to my notes, g6 proves to be pretty solid for black. So I think right now we are good to go with Evans. So let's move on. So now besides before, we have a few other lines. I would like to mention knight c3, which is, I think, kind of like strange move, and probably you can see in the game of the beginners, like when the teachers explain you just need to develop pieces. However, now it's kind of like latest fashion, with the point that after knight f6, d3, and after d6, let's say if it's just symmetrical play, like you can see the game of beginners, white has this idea knight a4, getting dark square bishop. It's not such a dramatic development, because that's a pretty common situation where black is giving up the bishop in this position by playing bishop b6 and knight b6, a b6. The pawn structure is okay. I kind of like white here, because again, like, a lot of respect to bishop pair, castle here. There are like some grandmaster games. Overall, like, black has pretty decent score here, but now I feel like if there is a choice, why to give up dark square bishop? So the line that I would recommend here in this situation is to play castle. So the bishop can still retreat to e7 if necessary. So that's why knight a4 kind of like doesn't make any sense. So usually white chooses castle. Now, very important idea that after bishop g5, we have h6. I mean, I'm talking about black, h6, bishop h4, and there is this idea bishop e7 to deal with this pin, because otherwise it's very annoying. We have to play g5 at some point, but bishop e7 still the option. And now the problem for white, that black has a tactical trick with knight a4. Knight a4 might work, and therefore some games that I went over, like, white were kind of like forced to play bishop g3 or some other moves. I think overall it's very solid position for black here. Overall, my overall feeling that bishop is not so well placed on h4. On this diagonal, it's like more natural square on e3. So therefore, I would say that it's a good position. So now after castle, which is more flexible, I would suggest the following solution: h6. That looks very natural, not allowing bishop g5. I think like many of you have seen this kind of like play. Once again, among beginners, I have seen a lot of games like that. I was pretty sure that white is winning here after knight d5, but in knight d4, I checked this position and I didn't find any win for white here, and even eventually computer turned to move king h1, which is kind of shocking, but that just shows that there is no forced win. However, of course, after king h1, anticipating the capture on f3 so that white can use rook g1 for the attack, white is better. So, but h6 is very thematic prophylaxis. Now there is no bishop g5, so we just have a normal position. The play can go, for instance, knight e2. So there is a game played between Aronian and Ganguly recently in 2018. I think overall black has nothing to complain in this position. Once again, the classical idea comes, and the bishop b5. Actually the bishop is gone, and that's, I always believe that if we get the bishop, black should be all right. Knight b3, a b3, and rook e8. So this is the game played in super tournament in India in 2018 November. So I think black is doing well. So now, so we covered knight c3. So now we switch to castle, knight f6, and of course, most of the games, the majority of the games, features d3, and this is what's so-called slow Italian, and this is what will be covered in our next sessions. But there is one very important move to mention: d4. Very, very tricky move. Again, as I always mention, it just required a very good knowledge from black side, and then black is doing fine. So after d4, we have, obviously, I don't think knight d4, knight e5 makes any sense for black. So e d4 and bishop d4, two main captures. So after e d4, we have e5. Now d5 is very common reaction in this kind of positions. After knight g4, I think knight g4 is not that bad, although after bishop f4, I rather prefer white. Well, knight on g4 is slightly misplaced, and so on. Now, after d5, the critical line would be ef6. Now, I would like to mention, it's very important to mention that after bishop b5, knight e4, knight d4, it seems like we are transposing to famous line. I don't know, like it's probably, we can call it 4 knights or something like that. No, it's not a 4 knights because knights still on b1, but that's a well-known theoretical line. I actually kind of like, I forgot to check the name, but here, I guess like you have seen quite a lot this type of position, bishop c6, bc6, which is okay for black, but it's in somewhat, it's playable. It's very important that in this situation, there is move castle with the sacrifice, and after knight c6, bc6, bishop c6, we have the move bishop a6, and if I remember correctly, in these complications, black is doing fine, and actually white should be very, very careful not to lose quickly with some catastrophe on f2 square. So this is bishop b5, and again, like white shouldn't get into this. ef6 is better. Now we have pretty clear sequence of moves here. Take rook g8 and bishop g5, and I feel white has better chances here after both f6, bishop h6, or this line is more popular, bishop e7, bishop e7, bishop takes e7. Now, unfortunately for black, he has to recapture with the king, as otherwise d4 is falling. It looks a little bit crazy, but it's not that the king is getting mated. Well, you know, there is bishop, and even king can run to g7. So actually king f6, probably a better move. After bishop e6, rook e4, again, I think overall we'll get to the situation where d4 is falling, and it will be just eventually a better pawn structure for white with equal material. Now, after king f6, I thought also rook e4, and I have the feeling that white is doing better in this position, even though I think the results are pretty double-edged here. So this is e4, and definitely from black perspective, it's not exactly the line to enter, and it would be kind of like set to be forced to play e4 in this type of position. Therefore, the critical move is bishop d4, and not only critical but also the best for black. Now, the whole point of white sacrifice is to take knight d4, obviously knight d4, and f4. This is the main line, but I would like to mention also very tricky bishop g5. The biggest trick in this position is to have in this line where black plays h6, bishop h4, g5. Looks like we just chase off the bishop ends up in g3, then we play d6, and what white exactly has for the sacrifice pawn. But the whole point, there is a shock in f4, and as I understand, it's very dangerous position for black. So the play opens up, our king on a8, potentially f7 is very problematic. So therefore, black should be more accurate. Black should be more accurate in this position, and rather play. So we have one line which is, I thought, kind of like makes sense. Queen e7, like iron c5 square in case of f5. Now we have the position here: knight c3, c6, f4, and d6. This looks pretty solid. Once again, probably black will try to castle queenside. If you're wondering what's going on with the king, since bishop f6 ruins the pawn structure at some point. So, well, but there is an option of queenside castle at all. But still, I mean, this position not that clear, and there is a reasonable compensation and quite interesting play for white after queen d2. So therefore, it seems like the straightforward and the most critical line is to play h6, bishop h4, and d6. And d6, then f4 has to be played because the next g5 is already a serious positional threat. F4 and bishop g4. So we have this very challenging line. The point is that after bishop f6, bishop d1, bishop d8, rook d8, rook d1, knight c2, we get two pieces. We get like rook and two pawns for two pieces, and I feel like black should be all right. So there is a game between two very good grandmasters which went like that: knight f3, c6, rook a1, king a7. I feel like black is doing very well. Will strike with d5 at some point, but the game ended in a draw. Maybe overall, like white can hold this position. So I would say that's about equal. So now, if white decides to refrain from all these complications and just go queen d5, there is a very unpleasant surprise. g5 is working. g5 is very strong due to the idea fg5 knight e4. Here black, I think, in great shape as far as I understand, and even Bishop f7 is not a big deal because we just move our king to d7 at the same time, following up with ag5 and so on. Yeah, so that's why after queen d2 g5, it's pretty much fourth line, fe5, d5, bishop g3, and as I mentioned a few times already, we have the option, I mean, we black have the option of queenside castle. So knight c3, queenside castle. Black is doing fine, and white has a very hard job to prove any compensation for the pawn. So this is one line. Now f4. f4 is the most popular move in this position. f4. So we play d6. fe5, d5, bishop g5, the main line. The main line. The idea, obviously, that the pin is very annoying. Bishop f6 can come anytime. Castle is very dangerous. Therefore, it's well known that the main move in this position, queen e7. Probably bishop e6, not so bad either. Now, in this position, we have just an exemplary line, knight a3. I think it's like top choice. After c3, very important line, very important move, knight a6. It's very precise to play knight a6. There is a model game for white, I would say. I remember checking this line, and then back then it was played in 2009. I thought, well, what an interesting line. I didn't know about that, but in fact, black didn't play well in this game. Bishop e6, knight a3, knight c6, king h1. So the problem here, the black's problem, that there is no queenside castle available, and therefore eventually black was forced to stay with the king on a8. So white captured on f6, doubled on a file, and enjoyed a very nice compensation. And actually won this game. It's the game between Movsesian and Michael Adams. Not very often Michael Adams losing this type of position. So, but this is a very powerful compensation. It's not only rook doubling the rooks, but also knight eventually comes to f5 square. So after knight f3, yeah, well, the most important to mention that after c3, knight a6, I found like it's very reliable position. After bishop f6, actually we have a choice. We can take gf6 and have a nice game, but also very safe line to go after light square bishop. Even though we kind of like allow to regain the pawn, and after, let's say, bishop c7, I think that there is another tactic, bishop g7, so taking advantage of rook e1 idea. But after rook g8, I think it might be only the problem for white, since g2 pawn is not might be very problematic, especially when black light square bishop will come into the h1a diagonal, right? So after bishop c7, we can play castle, knight d2, and queen g6. So this is that's kind of like easy solution for black with a very reliable position, which is actually, I believe, slightly better, because once the bishop comes into this diagonal, I think we are very safe. At the same time, we can target g2 with maybe h5, h4, and so on. So that's a safe solution. So now, after knight a3, I would like to mention knight a3 as well. Knight a3. So here we carry out the main idea, to prepare queenside castle. Bishop d7, queen e1, one of the moves. We play knight a6. Knight e6. Now ready for bishop f6, gf6, as well as if bishop h4 played, which is probably, I felt like the best move in this position. Yeah, I thought about the idea to play h6 followed by knight g5. So I would rather make bishop f6 top line, bishop f6, gf6, bishop f6, gf6, queen e3, let's say, queen f3. So the castle is not available as the pawn on a7 is hanging, but we can slowly play rook g8, rook g6 in the beginning, protecting the pawn. At the same time, maybe eyeing like some counterplay over g5. Now b6, just simple b6. And next move, the castle comes. Bishop a6 runs in knight c5. That's not a problem. After castle, followed by rook g8, I think like white has a hard time to prove compensation. So black has excellent game. So we are moving towards other directions. So this will be c3, knight f6. And now, once again, most of the games at grandmaster level, you'll find d3, and this is slow Italian, but d4 is the line to be prepared. So we have to capture on d4. Obviously, that's the only move. Now, cd4, one line, which is probably the most popular at your level, guys, right now. But I find like e5 the most interesting line and kind of latest fashion for white in this Italian. Now, after cd4, bishop b4 check, pretty much forced, as otherwise e5, d5 will come with the tempo. Bishop d2 is the main move. Bishop d2 is the main move. Now, I have also to mention that there are two important alternatives. Knight c3, very, very interesting line. Knight c3, knight e4, and castle. I think like overall, I don't know how it's played in India, but we have in US many coaches recommending this line for the beginners, and the beginners basically kind of like able to have successful games until the level maybe 1600, or I would say rather like 1600. So there are many tricks in this position, and those who don't know the theory like can lose very quickly with black. For instance, one of the lines that kind of like looks very tempting for black, but actually pretty bad, is to grab the second pawn. Then after bishop a3, suddenly the king is in trouble. And I think if I remember correctly, it's a serious issue here with the king, and even d6 is not helping actually. Now the best response for black is to play bishop c3. The best response is to play bishop c3. Now d5 is the main move, and whites hope to trick black. So after bc3, we have very important move, which I believe kind of like cements the position. So d5 is played, then nothing can stop us from castling and enjoying extra pawn. Maybe there will be some compensation thanks to bishop pair, but it's very, very little. And for sure, this is not the way that white hopes to emerge out of the opening. So d5 is the main move in this position. D5 is the main move. Now bishop f6, the best response. Bishop f6 is the best response. After knight e5, well, I think also knight e5 is definitely pretty serious alternative. But I already kind of like eyeing black's advantage in this type of position. So I felt that knight e5, bc3, knight c4, queen d4 usually proves to be interesting compensation here, as far as I understand. There are like seriously like almost 500 games. I don't believe my eyes. It's like almost 500 games in this position, and I feel like white should be able to kind of like keep the balance here, being pawn down, but having some like good development and some initiative. So therefore, I think, well, in my opinion, is honestly speaking, is just a refutation of this line, the move bishop f6. Now the line goes rook e1. Obviously, if he decides to take dc6, we just take we capture bc6 followed by d5. So that's I think like 2 pawns up. and no sufficient compensation. So after bishop f6, rook e1, knight e7, the best response. So again, like we castle, probably white is rook e4 and d6. Very important, because otherwise white can play d6, and by doing this, shut down the bishop on c8. So d6 is very important move. So now we are about to castle and enjoy a very nice position. So bishop g5, the main move, although objectively speaking, I feel like maybe g4 is the best move. And this is well-known alternative. I believe black has two good options here, or castle g5 and then give up the pawn with bishop e5. Actually, like we also get a tempo here, and let's say after rook e1, this queen d7. So white was able to regain the pawn, but the price was too high. Now the king is exposed, so good chances to take over for black, as well as h6, also pretty solid, to be honest, and good position for black. Now after bishop g5, the move that really requires good knowledge, after bishop g5, we have to capture knight g5 and play h6. Very, very, very important move. I'm sorry, my mouse slipped. Now the whole point, and I guess that's one of the major tricks here, that after castle there is this crazy attack with knight h7. However, I don't think actually that white is winning, but this is something that it's very difficult to defend on practice, to be honest. Rook h4. I checked with computer. Computer believes that this game should end it in a draw, but it's very hard to find the precise. So first of all, f5, I think the best. I'm not sure about being the only move. Now, very important, queen h7, king f7, rook h6, the best idea for white. And now the only move is rook g8. So the threat is actually bishop e2, bishop h5. So rook g8 is the only move, and rook e1. It's full compensation. Most probably, I'm pretty sure that white won more on practice, but there are also some drawish games. I guess there is a precise defense, but I don't want to get into this because it's actually not so relevant, like for black side, since we have just h6 and it works great. After h6, the main idea, white's idea, is to play queen e2 and triple over e-file. After knight f3, black just castles, and already no problems, and knight can come to g6, bishop can come to f5. I think not enough compensation for the pawn. That's why that's the main hope. Ag5, rook e1 looks very, very scary for black, but actually everything is under control. Bishop e6, only move, now d6 and f6. So that's the line, and you would be surprised. I believe this is a refutation, and black is just winning. It's hard to believe, because in the beginning, optically, you see this super dangerous pawn on e6. But now there is a very simple idea, not to forget in those lines about queenside castle. And actually, the only way for white to stop castle temporary is to play rook e3, and after c6 to play rook h3. But after rook h3, gh3, g6, so we have to defend against queen h5. We still in great shape, and if necessary, king can just be safe on g7. Meanwhile, the queen jumps, so objectively is just clear advantage for black. So this line is not working. Or objectively speaking, and that's a refutation. Again, like usually you don't see on the decent level. I would say it's rather until 1600-1700 you can face this, but well, hopefully you still get a few points, and once you face like low-rated guys. So unfortunately, guys, we have 10 minutes left, and I know like you like to ask questions. You always have a lot of questions. We still have some material to go over. I guess we'll try to complete this next session. So there is a move. There is a main line with bishop d2 and knight d2. I guess we'll just 15-20 minutes. We'll get over those lines and we'll move on with our schedule. So now it's I guess it's 10 minutes for the question. I would love to see your question and answer your question. Pankaj, hi.
Hi, hello, sir. It was a lovely session. Yeah. So Prashant Matthew is asking about how to prepare opening. Can you describe him in summary?
So again, can you repeat how to prepare openings?
Yeah.
Well, this is too general. Like, it depends what level. It's just maybe I can do also 52 hours. Course how to prepare openings. It's really too general. It's too general. But well, what is very important, I would like to mention, is that to have a good source, the reliable source, something that you can trust, like some grandmaster books. That's very important. And then okay, yeah, I mean it could be like 2 hours lecture. So I think it's too general to answer.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next question. Om is asking why is Sicilian national taken in this program? Can you describe him why this was an important part of this course?
Why is it important to take this program?
No, Sicilian Najdov line is taken in this course.
Well, I think it is. It just will come later. Yeah, absolutely. We have Najdorf, I think.
Okay. All right, sir. The next question is from Rupal, and he's asking why is BF6 is the best?
Why? What is BF6? Well, bishop f6. Bishop f6, and probably in the line. Well, well, the bishop is hanging, like 2 pieces hanging. So the preference to save bishop. Like we can move the knight, but then it's like more or less about equality to knight e5, as I explained. But keeping the bishop in the game by playing bishop f6, it just makes black's position more reliable on the king side, and it's just theoretical. It works better, and just black is better after this.
Okay. Yes. So anyone? Yes, we have a new question. So Anurag wants to ask, what are your remarks about Budapest Gambit?
What are remarks about Budapest Gambit? And he's saying like he's like 1400 rating.
Yeah, 1375.
Yes, I mean it's a tricky opening. Maybe on your level, it might work. I don't think like you can keep playing once you move, let's say, to I don't know, 1800 to 2000. Let's say already this would be kind of like like many people would know how to react, and then it might be a problem. Now, the problem with Budapest is that many players, when you play d4 knight f6, many white players prefer to play knight f3, avoiding Budapest and the same time Venko Gambit. So it's not like full opening. So like you might play Budapest after c4, but many players play knight f3. So you cannot rely like as a main opening. But overall Budapest, yeah, I mean, it's just something tricky that at lower level you can play, but later on, I think like you'll have to switch to something more reliable.
Right, sir. Sandeep wants to know, is Hippo system good for both sides?
To be honest, I don't know what is Hippo system.
Right.
I don't know what doesn't mean.
Yeah. Okay. And Rupal is asking why we bishop b2.
What what doesn't mean why would bishop b2? I'm just trying to kind of recall in which line. In which line we have bishop b2? I don't recall bishop b2 like at all. Where it was? I mean, I don't know. I don't think like we have bishop b2 today. No.
No, I didn't see that either.
So. So yeah, I mean, I can see the question. I want to win below 1500 championship, right? I mean, you see, this is the next question, right?
Yeah.
What should I do?
He wants to know he's going to start in next 15 days and he wants to win below 1500 championship. What should he do?
If it will be such a simple solution, I guess, like, you should just try to commit less mistakes than your opponent. I mean, and that's the whole trick. Yes, but study well, prepare like tactics, be ready tactically, maybe warm up, like solve a lot of puzzles before the game, before the tournament. So like exactly, you have like 2 weeks to concentrate. Go over your like opening files. I guess like 1500, you don't have like very heavy openings materials, but at least you have to make sure that you memorize what you have right now. So as far as I see, like you attend my session, so like go over my Italian. So I guess like some other lines as well. So like be mentally prepared, like rest well before the tournament, have a lot of energy actually during the tournament as well, and well, try to commit as less mistakes as possible. Yeah, I mean, that's it's always about this. It's not only on 1500, also with the grandmasters.
So Anurag wants to know, is the Catalan system good or London system? What are your few words on this?
Well, they both playable systems. Just like I want to make some distinguish between London system. It's in some way it's a sideline, even though it's been very, very fashionable nowadays. Bishop f, like knight f3, bishop f4. It's maybe I would say like this. This is the easy opening to study, because basically against almost every black setup you do the same piece arrangement. So from this point of view, if you want like some quick and playable and practical stuff, the London is a good choice. But if you want to play more, concentrate on the openings and push for something more out of the opening, like to get bigger advantage, the Catalan is considered to be like more challenging opening, in my opinion.
Right. So Anirudh wants to know that he only plays classical opening and main lines, and he very rarely plays sidelines. So is it okay, or should he add more sidelines to his repertoire?
Well, I think it's a good idea to play classical lines, because this is where you study the most common like pawn structures, the most common positions, middle games. Of course, like in general, if you feel like the opponents can prepare against you and they can anticipate like what you play, I don't mind when, like, I tell my students, for one game, like a surprise, you can play whatever you want. You can play any sideline unless it's absolutely crazy. So you can play, yeah. I mean, I think it's not a bad idea to add some sidelines like a surprise weapon, but don't expect that if somebody prepares, I don't know your level, but if somebody prepares against you, the problem of sidelines sometimes, like, there is no way for you to fight for advantage. Not only to get advantage, you cannot even fight. So somebody just opens the book and checks like how to fight against this sideline, and there is a solution. You cannot do anything. And this is the difference from the classical main lines, where you have a lot of room for like not only fighting for advantage, but rather getting like playable positions. Sidelines, you just, okay, you tricked, and then somebody expecting you expects like the same line, and he just prepares with the coach, and you run into problem. Like you don't have any advantage out of the opening, let's say with white, yeah, if we're talking about white.
All right. So this is the last question of our session. Sandeep is asking, is queen e2 line good against Ruy Lopez?
Yeah, I know what you are talking about. Queen e2 it's a good practical tricky line, but I would rather say that this is in some way it's a sideline. Again, what is your level? But Queen e2 played by grandmasters. Yeah, I mean, you can easily play until, I don't know, 2200. like this line would easily survive until 2200. Then once again, like if somebody prepares, that would be problematic. But what is good about this, since it's Ruy Lopez, it's in general, it's already main classical line. So even though somebody prepares against this line, still there are a lot of pieces on the board. You still can play, study the ideas, study the main plans, study how to arrange pieces. Even though somebody is equalizing, you can still hope to outplay him in the middle game thanks to your better knowledge of thematic plans and ideas. So I think like from this point, like of you can definitely play Queen E2. So I see one very important question. Can we get the PGN files of the classes? And as far as I know, you provide this, right? PGN files. So this should be available.
Yes, sir. Okay. PGN class files will be provided to all of our attendees, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, at least I provide, yeah.
Yeah, obviously. Yes, sir. So with that, we would like to bring this session to an end, right?
Yeah.
So good night, everybody. And
Yeah,
thank you,
thank you
sir,
for
for joining.
moderating. It was a pleasure as always.
Yeah.
And you have a good night, guys. And I'll see you next Friday.
Good night, everybody, from here in Navshad.